right in here and get started. Okay, this is the high-speed internet subcommittee meeting for Tuesday. No, it's not. It's for Thursday, July 16th, and this meeting's being recorded pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12th order suspending certain provisions of open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the High-Speed Internet Subcommittee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the AG webpage. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. The town will persevere to use conference call capabilities in the Zoom platform for other parties to listen in and participate accordingly. If not possible, we will post it on the town meeting's website and audio recording as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, so the preliminaries are out of the way.
Okay.
So yes, I don't think we got the minutes, did we?
No.
Nope.
Oh, good. So we'll hold those over to the next meeting. I don't see any public here at all, which is fine. So there's no need for public comment. So
The agenda to
what?
amend and approve the agenda?
Huh?
Do we need to amend and approve the agenda?
For today?
Yeah. Don't we
No.
usually do that?
Mm-mm. Just
Okay.
minutes.
No,
The agenda was posted.
we usually just approve the minutes as amended.
Right. And I don't think she sent them out yet from the last one.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing them, so I'll chase her down. She's got her hands full with the little one. And under the meeting law, open meeting law, I just actually went through training this week. It's 2 meetings or 30 days, whichever is longer. So we should be okay. And the last meeting was relatively brief, correct? If I recall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I apologize with all this cranking around with the times and dates. We were supposed to try to meet on Tuesday, and we didn't get it posted in time. And then I think she was waiting on me, and I didn't know she was waiting on me, so it didn't get posted on Friday to meet Tuesday. And then we were going to meet, I think it was Wednesday, but then we were trying to have it earlier in the day, and then by the time she went to post it, it was actually like 2 minutes after the meeting would have started. So it was within the 48 hours notice. So we couldn't post that. So we just posted for Thursday at 7 because I actually had to attend Board of Health at 6 o'clock. So here we are. So I apologize for chasing everybody around with times and dates, and thank you for coming out. So Tuesday, we're going to meet with the Board of Selectmen. And I think, subject to discussion here is, I'd like to put together just a brief deck, if you will, of kind of just the summary points of what we learned. That we met with G&E, that we met with GoNetspeed. We have a rough number, and I have to look up that number if anybody remembers what it was that we came up with of just a gut check. It was like a gut check number of X million dollars. I thought it was 8, but I could be wrong. $8 million of work to basically wire up the town for fiber. And whether, somebody like a G&E would do it, or, we would do it and, subcontract out to someone like a GoNetspeed. That is this decision. And then give them the data, a summarized version of the data, and literally like 4 numbers, like, and I don't have the exact percentage. I'll have to do the math, but it's, X% we're satisfied with their Comcast that they have, or their form of internet that they have, and 110% we're just dissatisfied with the price thereof, right? And then move from that to, as far as the number of people that completed the survey, that a large percentage actually gave their name and number to sign up, and then walk through the process that we learned early on in our committee of what's the process to form a captive utility. And I don't even know it's called. It's actually I don't think it's called a captive utility. I'll look up, but it basically is 2 successive town meeting votes, which I got from Carl and I gave it to Annie. That's how she got it in the agenda. You know, what the process would be to do it, and then you'd have to go and probably bond for the money to do it as a utility. And then the utility itself would have to be essentially an enterprise fund, like our existing water and sewer, right? The water and sewer, sewer is a bad example, but the water department is self-sustaining entity, right? It takes in money for providing water, and that cost of the monies that they receive from their customers is enough to pay for the water that they pump out of the ground, the pumping costs, and the infrastructure costs. So when they got to go replace a water main or, you know, piping and so on and so forth, you know, that's how they roll. And they have a separate budget as part of town meeting. And just by a side tidbit fact, I don't know, for those that have gone to town meetings and wonder why everybody in town gets to vote on the water budget when you may or may not be a water customer. I know I live on the west side of town, so I don't have town water, and I never will probably, but I get to vote on all their water bond bills and everything that goes in front of town meeting. And the reason is because the taxpayers of the town of Southwick are the backstop to any bond issues they have. So if the water department were to default on their bonds or there are any other obligation they're on, it falls back on the town. And so this would be the same thing for this too, right? So that's why even if you established an enterprise fund and a captive G&E or a captive utility, you would still be the town itself would still be liable for the dough. And that's why it has to go to a town meeting twice.
Right.
So Doug, the information that was sent out
Yep.
Indicates that there's no cost associated with becoming an MLP.
Oh, there's a huge cost to become an MLP. There's a huge cost. It's a soft cost. I mean, it's not like you write a check for $10,000 for your application, but it's I would wager it's hundreds of hours of attorney time to do the applications to the DPU, to get ready for a town meeting, to get the articles ready for town meeting, blah, 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 to make sure it's all right.
That's what we've talked about before, but in this material that was sent out that I think came from the Wilbraham effort, looking at things, they specifically asked the question, what are the costs associated with becoming an MLP? And it says there are none. Becoming an MLP is more of an administrative or housekeeping function and enables the municipality to have a choice whether or not to provide fiber and broadband services beyond municipal government and school buildings.
Can you send me that document that you're reading from when you get a chance?
Sure. It was, Annie sent it out to be discussed at the meeting. So you might have it, but yes.
I might even have it then. Let's see.
I will send it to you. Yeah.
Please.
So that was material that came from Wilbraham, I guess, because they are currently discussing this in their town meeting.
Essentially, this is it.
Oh, I see it. I have it in front of me now. I didn't read past Carl's notes. Gotcha.
It was an exchange of emails between Howard Daniel or Daniel Howard and Carl Steinhardt.
Yeah, I see it now. Correct.
Yeah.
And it has their warrant article and everything else in there.
Right.
Yeah, I got it.
Right.
I got it. Thank you. So, yeah, I mean, that's true. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting jaded being in government, but there is no such thing as it doesn't cost anything, because there's always administrative burden, right? Because you just know at the state level, whether it's with DPU or some other 3-letter or 4-letter acronym division of the state government, there's oodles of reporting that needs to happen. And that those costs are not soft. They're real dollars that get spent every year to comply with the various rules and regulations, right? Even if you just form a a shadow MLP, like we call it, or whatever we're going to call it, right? It doesn't actually provide power or gas, but it's a captive utility. It's still going to have to be on file with the DPU, and you're going to have to file all the paperwork with the DPU, and perhaps
Right.
yeah, and all the legal fees and legal work that has to come with that, and then also with the maybe if you part of your contractual deal with whoever is your broadband provider, especially if it was someone like WG&E, they would do it because they're doing already for Westfield, so it would be not that and other entities that they're managing the broadband for. Maybe that would be part of the contractual obligation, but it's still there's still a real dollar amount, and probably after 2 years you could probably identify what those dollars look like. And it's probably not a six-figure number, but it's definitely, I would imagine it's at least a double-digit number.
It's somewhat misleading because you could read it so that there may not be a filing fee. That may be what it's getting at.
Right.
You need to file it, but what you're paying for is, to Doug's point, you're paying the hundreds of hours of lawyer or lawyers the application and just get you prepared to be able to file it.
Right. And it's going to be one of those ones where you're going to have, there's going to be a specialist who's, he or she is a seasoned attorney in dealing with the DPU, right? And knowing what they're looking for and getting what they're done. So it's not even at the straight rate. But yeah, we've just seen that movie too many times.
Right.
But I mean, if it's something that's worthwhile doing, it's a worthwhile cost. But it's also one of those things, and I don't. This is Doug Mogul's opinion. I'd be very interested to hear from everyone else. I don't think this is something we should sell, as far as if we think it's a great idea, we can position it as a great idea. But I just would lead with facts and go, this is what we found out. This is what we're chartered to do. No pun intended. This is what we found out. This is the next step should the board choose to take it. And, I don't know what, I don't even think if you add up everything and you go, okay, this is a $9 million project or a $10 million project. And so you don't worry about $100,000 to set up it would just be added to the bond. They're going to add a buffer to a bond to do something like this anyway. They would have, Carl Steinhardt would probably be able to do the math in his head and say, oh yeah, well I need to add another 15 or 20 grand for clerk of the works and, attorney stuff for all this other stuff. And, you're 2 years away from doing it. So maybe they'd have to allocate some budget next year in order to facilitate the process. But it's not, I don't think it's something like there's a fixed dollar amount.
I have a question on also the material that was sent out. It appears like what Dan is saying is that Westfield is willing to assist other towns in designing, constructing, and operating their own fiber networks. That begins with the formation of the town's municipal light plant. The project at the former SCC, and I'm not sure what that stands for, coupled with its location, would make it an ideal site for Southwick to test the waters. Yep. As the project construction is beginning very soon, we could assist the developer in prepping the site for high speed. Is this the construction at the Southwick Country Club?
That's the SCC, right? So what happened, and this whole thing kind of got a little bit of and we've discussed it a few times internally at the Board of Selectmen as mostly bitching about Comcast, but because, we have a cable advisory committee that we form and a cable contract commission that gets formed every couple of years to renegotiate our deal with Comcast. That is really the biggest farce of negotiations you ever saw under federal law. You can't negotiate anything. So I don't even know why we bother, but here nor there. So when Southwick Country Club was starting their plan, they, with a lot of foresight, I might add, looked at it and go, look, this broadband stuff is critical. This is just like, and we talked about this, it's just like water and electricity. We have to have broadband here or these houses aren't marketable. You can't buy a house today without broadband. People need to have that for entertainment, for work, for communication, just all the things we saw in the survey. So they actually reached out to G&E and said, hey, we're putting these pipes in the ground. We're going to give you a pipe, put the fiber in. And, Westfield G&E had to break it to them that said, yeah, we're a municipal utility. We're not allowed to work outside of our town.
Right.
We could be a contractor for, another municipal utility. We'll gladly do that. And that's the paragraph that,
Okay.
that you're alluding to from Dan, the last paragraph of his email. But
So
yeah,
it's something like this is still all old stuff as opposed
I mean,
to
this goes
current.
back, this is probably almost 2 years old now, right? August
Yeah.
15th, 2018, almost 2 years it's 23 months ago, right?
Yeah, I just didn't know if that final comment he made was something updated. But I just want to say, I did get a newsletter today or yesterday, it came, an email. I had signed up for that Institute for Local Self-Reliance that I had been in touch with in the past. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So apparently they sent an email out yesterday indicating that Congress has just introduced
Yes.
Rural Broadband Acceleration Act to
Yeah.
speed deployment of broadband, and there's
Yes.
funding that is available. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that.
I did. I have a note to self to read up on that. My guess is it's going to be very much like the one that's being done at the state level here in Mass, and they're going to towns that have zero high-speed internet with that money. So it's going to be very much a rural broadband, and then as the federal government usually goes with these things, they're also going to focus on lower income and try to provide subsidized broadband based on economic strata. So, and frankly, it's not a bad idea. I mean, you've seen, even with this pandemic, with kids in school and getting devices to take home, but then don't have high-speed internet at home, so can't take advantage of the online
Right.
learning and educational opportunities that were availed to them through the
And the
school, but then
school-
they couldn't connect to it, or they were down, sitting in the parking lot outside the library or what have you.
Right.
Doug, the reference to that is HR 7022. That's the bill that's before Congress. HR 7022.
It also has to get through the Senate, which,
Well, right now it has to get through the House too.
yeah, right. But I think it's got a shot at that. We'll see what happens when it gets to the Senate, right? They haven't been the
Right.
most productive body of late.
No, they-
Trying to keep the politics out of it, but it's been almost,
Yeah.
if they do it, it must be a bad idea. And if the other guy does it, it definitely is a bad idea. So,
So according to what I read, it was sounding like they would probably, if this happens, they would be taking applications for the money maybe effective in September. So that's why I wanted to mention it.
and, and that might change, I'd have to think about it some more. I mean, I'll read HR 7022, but I think even if we said go now, we're 2 years from being ready to go forth, because you have to go to 2 town meetings. And I don't think it's 2 specials. I
it's
thought I
town
saw
meeting
something in there that it was 2 annuals.
I mean, if you can work the math on those 2 annuals, lots of luck. But what Wilbraham did, it was a town meeting, and then they had a special 2 weeks later.
Well, it says 2 meetings within a 13-month period, no less than 2 months apart. So
Right.
most direct way would be 2 annual meetings, but I guess that's right. If you read it, it says here, so if we had a special in, not saying it's going to happen, because we were just talking about this the other day and we got nothing on the radar. But if we had a special in September and then our annual in May, you could get it done in less than a year. It doesn't necessarily mean 2 annuals. And it also 2 public meetings. So it's not a ballot initiative, because I've seen other ones where it has to go to the ballot box and a town meeting. But this one looks like it's just 2 town meetings.
Yes.
So, and we're just trying to be, and the town is trying to be cautious right now with having, even though legislative bodies are exempt under the governor's order, we're not trying to get people together, even if it's outdoors, unless we have to, right, for a town meeting, right? We've done it twice now, once for the lake thing, and that was very time critical. And then we had our annual, which we had to do, which was delayed, but we had to do it. And we had it outdoors at the school. So someone asked me tonight about having one for something about a mosquito commission. And I said, yeah, I don't see that happening. To have a singular purposed special for that. But if we had 4 or 5 things, maybe there's some labor stuff coming up or some other stuff coming up that needs to get voted on at a town meeting that we would call a special late fall. We're not going to do it in the winter just because it would suck. I don't want to be outside at the school in January in the snow having a town meeting in the dark.
Right.
So, but I think that's the way to present it to the Board of Selectmen.
That makes sense.
Perhaps a thought would be giving them we can tell the selectmen what we found and then propose a suggested roadmap for next steps.
Yeah. And, I think the selectmen would be wise to, we got a lot of response to the survey, but we didn't get a lot of public participation as part of our meeting process. I mean, we had a couple people come a couple of times, right? But, in a population of 10,000. So perhaps maybe at some point in the future, near future, the Board of Selectmen should probably, if they're game, to hold kind of a public forum on something like this. Maybe even have somebody like a G&E or someone else come and present and just kind of lay out the numbers and to see, because, I've been at town meetings where, sewer projects for less money have gone down in flames, right? So from a political standpoint and from a Yankee conservative standpoint, I don't know, you'd have to really take a look and see if they're willing to, if the townspeople are willing to go and form the entity and, undertake a project that could be, $9 or $10 million over 20 years. I think it's doable, especially as long as, Doug Moglen's opinion is it's doable as long as the town doesn't get in its own way, right? Because and we've talked, I know I've said it since the beginning, but, I can't imagine the town trying to operate this, right? I would just as soon see, you literally form the MLP and then you have somebody, you sign a long-term deal with somebody to provide the service. And it doesn't become another town department. It doesn't have its, a set of employees, just like the way the G&E's doing it. G&E's doing it with their people, but mostly contracted out to people that work on a contract basis for G&E. And then G&E in turn is becoming a project manager for other towns as well. So, and they've got the smarts to do it, and they'll have scale.
Right. I was impressed with the fact that Westfield G&E seems to be doing business with towns that are rather remote from Westfield. They are not around Westfield. They are 30, 40 miles away from Westfield.
Right.
Like Shutesbury and whatnot. Up in my old stomping grounds up around Amherst. New Salem, Shutesbury.
I mean, They did a great job in Westfield. I mean, their take rate's phenomenal. I remember talking to him the first time when he met with the Board of Selectmen. Their take rate is really good, and in the areas that they built out, and they also covered most of the town. They still got some places to catch up, but they've got a plan to get there. And I think people took that model and said, hey, if you've done such a great job in your town, would you do it for ours? And they looked at it and go, yeah, it's no different doing it in your town than it is doing it in our town, and we'll get scale. And, Westfield's no dummy as far as that goes. I give them a ton of credit. And I think we talked about this in our first meeting or after we met with them. They're actually retiring their 20-year notes in well under 12 years because it's from the extra principal payments they're making based on revenues they're getting from other towns.
Right.
It's helping them retire their local capital cost. And the other towns have to, they have to front their own capital money or put up their own capital money and pay back their own bonds. But from the management fees that they're getting as the designer and operator of these other networks, so at their, the $90 a month price or whatever they're charging, they've got basically a profit margin. I think it's 7%. I thought the number comes to mind. They're getting is more than their cost. So that they're using those funds, additional funds, to pay down the debt in Westfield. God bless them.
Yeah, that's a wise idea.
For them, it's a great idea. And for us, there's no way the town could hire and create an operating unit to do what they're doing for 2%, right? It's going to cost us more than G&E would do. So we'd gladly pay it, even if we know that they're making money, quote unquote, they're a nonprofit, so they don't make money. So they have retained earnings, I guess they call it. Or a retained surplus. They don't call it retained earnings. They call it a retained surplus over their cost, which is fine because the market is driving it. The market's driving the price for the service. They're at whatever they're getting, 80 or 90 bucks in Westfield. People are glad to pay it. They don't see, if they lowered it to 60, they're not going to double their customer base. So why would you keep it there and be able to pay down your debt and get out of debt earlier? That'd be great. I think, and the other edict from our Board of Selectmen, and I think you're seeing it in the other towns too, Westfield's doing it too, is they can't pick and choose, right? You're going to go and bond the money to do the whole town. You can't, short of some on-lot ones where there's, crazy distances from the road to the house, and that's covered in the installation, much like a sewer project. You got to cover the whole town. You can't just give someone the right to say, okay, we're going to do this for $2 million and we're only going to cover the dense part of College Highway and Lexington Circle and the Southwick Country Club. And, any of these other developments that we can get to because the houses are only 50 feet apart. We're going to have to go down Loomis Street and everywhere else, right? So, and that was the deal that they did with the cable company, 40 years ago, and it worked out well. Back, I think it was Continental Cable. They wouldn't, Continental wanted to come in and basically do the center of town and a couple dense residential areas, Fernwood, Burnwood, over by the schools, where they could get, 500 houses, with 100 feet of cable. But the town was insistent that they go by everybody, and they did.
Yeah.
So what's our next step in terms of prepping for the next week? I know you said you wanted to do some PowerPoints. What does that look like?
Just got really loud. Hang on. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't think anybody really summarized up the data from the survey, right? With just some rough percentages, but because I think presenting the survey unto itself is going to be just overwhelming amount of data to present in a 15-minute or 20-minute discussion with the board. So my take is to just kind of summarize the 5 or 6 questions with the summary chart and go, this is the data that we have, and just give them a set of facts. And then, whether they're going to ask for a recommendation from the board, I don't know. I would imagine, but I think from a recommendation standpoint, I think it seems like it's doable, and it just becomes more of a question of, from the Board of Selectmen, would be, one, are they are you prepared to go to battle against Comcast? Because that is a thing, right? And then the other is, do you think the townspeople would support a town meeting vote to do it? Or they might just say, hell, we'll put it on there and see what the townspeople say. And then there'll be, discussions here or there, or maybe they'll just say, maybe we should have a public information session about this and invite the public to come out and hear their feelings and let, represent this data to a wider audience to say, okay, our survey says that there's interest. The survey says it will be self-sustaining by a lot. I mean, it can't be close. It can't be something like, one of these, oh, it's a cup of coffee a day type expenses, which never is. That this won't be a cost burden to the taxpayers in the town of Southwick, that it's going to be an enterprise that can sustain itself.
And it's providing a service also that the town really needs to be a successful place to live in the 21st century.
Well, I 1,000% agree with you. I was actually having this conversation with somebody just today. This whole, depending on how long or if, what comes of this whole COVID deal, where would we be as an economy right now without broadband internet, right? I know I can speak for myself, and, I don't know what I would do. I couldn't do my job from my home without it. And, and I'm literally physically not supposed to go to my office per the governor's order. So I would be technically, I guess, unemployed, right? And, there's thousands and maybe even millions of people in the country. Actually, I'd wager it's millions of people in the country that would be in the same boat. And I think we're starting to see this, the internet piece become a utility like anything, like water, like electricity. And the other side of it is that, like the people at the Southwick Country Club, they're viewing it in that manner as it's not an amenity, it's a required thing that people are going to want in a home. And then the other piece of this is that if this is, if you're seeing a fundamental transformation of the workplace where maybe you don't necessarily have a workplace outside the home for a lot of people, this is required and important. And this makes Southwick an attractive place to live and work, right? Because it's one and the same now. And it makes you more competitive than other towns that don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
A quick question for you, Doug.
Right? Because I'm buying my Dunkin' Donuts coffee down the road instead of buying it in Hartford, so it's...
Oh, absolutely.
Keeping people in town is good.
Yeah, and not to go, and I'll come right back to you, sir, but I think, we were having a pretty wide-ranging discussion this afternoon, and it's actually a guy that does customer relationship management software. But we were talking about, it could fundamentally change the restaurant business. It's going to it already has, but it could be permanent, right? Do we really need to have restaurants with seating and big chandeliers and all? I totally foresee kind of area kitchen type places where, a restaurateur may just have a commercial kitchen and they cook, and either you pick up or they deliver from that place. And there might be 8 or 9 restaurants in this commercial kitchen, and they don't need to be in the high rent district. You don't need to be in the high traffic area of town. You could be anywhere you want, as long as you could get to and from where your customers are. So I think a lot of things could be fundamentally transformed from this whole thing.
What would be interesting is as we develop something to initially present to the selectmen, is that look at the wording that the folks there at Southwick Country Club use to describe high-speed internet. And that phraseology that they use is that I think that's very cogent, and it's 25 words or less, and it's right to the point. And so and by the way, how did that work out? Do they have high-speed internet there?
No.
They have Comcast, but they could. And the G&E couldn't come in. They're legally barred because they don't have any right to locate on the poles. And that's really all this, that's all the MLP gets you. There's nothing prohibiting G&E from coming in and providing internet service if say it was wireless and they wanted to build their own towers or what have you, or somehow they could magically do it from balloons or satellites or whatever. Nothing stopping anybody from doing that right now. The question is if fiber it needs to get to the homes. It needs to go on the poles. In order to go on the poles in the state of Mass, you need to be, basically a utility. And so Comcast is a regulated utility. Verizon's a regulated utility, and Verizon and Comcast own the poles. So the only way to get on the poles is by being an MLP.
Right. Okay.
That's all. And so when you boil it all down, that's what it comes down to.
Yep. So I think that's why what would be interesting is that being in touch with the developer of the property there at the old Southwick Country Club, and are their asking prices less now because they can't offer high-speed internet?
Well, they have it. They just don't have they would have preferred to offer, and they felt the property would have been more marketable with Whip City Fiber than with Comcast Internet. And it's strictly a monetary one, right? I mean, the Comcast service is fine. You can get gigabit Ethernet or gigabit internet from Comcast. You can get it today. It costs $120 for just the internet. Actually, I think it's 100. Right. It might be. I think it's $119 or $120 a month for gigabit Ethernet, gigabit internet from Comcast. And the G&E is what, $69 or $79. I think we put our survey at 80 or 90, just to give us some cushion for feedback, right? In Westfield, it's less expensive. So that's what they were hoping to get. And so that they were hoping that compared to other new construction in town, vis-a-vis Noble Steed or some of these other places that are, and also surrounding communities that are for sale, that'd be enticing to somebody. You can get it. They're having no problem selling houses still, but they do have a broadband option. It's just not, it's not as good as the one that the G&E is offering for those that want that.
So circling back to summarizing the survey, if no one's volunteered, I'd be glad to try my hand at a first draft.
You don't have.
Of the survey that we
summarizing the survey?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So if someone could email me the link to the survey so I could summarize, so I could start working on it.
That is gone. Let me see. I have the file though.
I volunteer to, I'll take a fling at the first draft. So once I do that, how do I get it out to everybody?
We have to be careful here, right? So I would send it to myself.
Yeah. All right.
And then are you going to put them in like a PowerPoint, a couple of PowerPoint slides?
I could teach myself, yeah.
Okay, or you could just, however you want to do it, even if you just type it out in an email. But I thought, I made a note to send you an email. I thought that they actually had a couple of, in the data that we had.
Yeah, there was, but it got cut off. I mean, we didn't have the whole thing.
No, I got it. I have it. And I downloaded it before. What the hell did I do with it? All is not lost. I know I have it. High-speed internet survey. Found it.
Jim, it may be helpful for you to look at the meeting minutes from, I think it was the February meeting. It was the meeting that I did the minutes for Annie because she was out. I seem to recall I may have started to summarize them. That was when we only got partial results. That might be something good for you to start with.
So I just sent them to you in your email.
Excellent.
And it's almost, it's not in a, it is kind of summarized here and it gives you the data. I just was going to put it into a couple of PowerPoint slides to make it easier to
Yeah,
see. And
Okay.
then, what was that?
I was going to say I'm happy to help with the PowerPoint or anything that's, I don't know the right way to kind of circulate it among us. So
Yeah, it's kind of tough with the
Well,
open meeting law, but I think we're not going to be discussing any business. It's more just finalizing a document. But I'll check with Carl to make sure we're okay, because we can't schedule a meeting every day for the next 3 days to get this done. But I think if we agree and that what we talked about in this meeting so far, if we can all agree that that's the framework and the way to present it, then, between, if you want to make a couple of slides, sir, to put to take a stab at that. And then, perhaps Allie and I could get together on the phone over the weekend or something, because then just to touch up the final of what we talked about, and then just give it to the selectmen on Tuesday. And then I'm assuming you guys are all going to come. I haven't seen the agenda yet for a time, but I think we're starting I have a meeting at 5.
person or Zoom? I haven't seen the
Oh, it's
meeting.
on Zoom.
Okay.
Definitely on Zoom. Let me see. Meetings. Board of Selectmen, 7/21 executive session at 5:30. And then the regular meeting is at 6 o'clock.
Is that Zoom information on the town website?
Yeah, I'm sure they haven't posted it yet. They'll post it tomorrow. Let me see. Select Board executive session agenda. So they haven't even posted the regular meeting yet. They only posted the executive session. It's going to be sometime after 6, probably before 7. So
when do you need it, Doug?
I'd love it this weekend sometime, just so that I can get it done Sunday, that I can work on it ahead of that, because my Mondays are usually pretty hellacious. Actually, every day is pretty hellacious lately. But yeah, so I could work on it this weekend.
All right.
And just do what you can, whatever you can get done. If you get nowhere or you get somewhere, just send what you have, and we can work on it together. And like I said, it's a we're not gonna debate or discuss, make any decisions around stuff going on. This is really just a presentation of the data such as we have it, and based on what we just talked about just now, as far as how we're gonna present it to the board.
Yep. Good to me. All right.
Yeah.
I will try to.
I have a question. Who's gonna present it?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Who's going to present it?
Who's going to present it to whom?
To the Board of Selectmen.
I do not know.
Allie, this is your big chance.
I was waiting for you to get back. I was like, where did he go?
I just had to stretch my legs. I've been sitting here all day.
I hear you. I hear you.
I'm going to try to get another walk in before the day's over. I've been trying to make a point to get out 3 times a day to just walk.
Oh, good for you. I actually went to the bike trail the other day with the puppy and thought I snuck in between the rain, but I did not. And I got halfway through.
I'm on the right track. I've been walking every day, and I actually did bring my bike out of the basement and aired up the tires and rode around my street a couple times to see, A, if I remembered how to ride a bike, and B, if my bike tires are still any good, because they are about old. But anyway, so
yeah, I'm happy to present. That's not a problem.
Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
That's fine, yep.
Awesome.
All right. I will try to. I will get this to you by Saturday noon.
Perfect.
And if Doug, are you just going to touch base with me then at some point during the weekend?
Yes.
Okay.
So I will put together what I think is a decent deck, and send it over to you.
Okay.
And with his slides, and then, because it's just data, send it over to you and we'll just make sure it's what we agreed on, and I'll let you do what you want with it from there.
Do I recirculate it once I make comments, or?
You can present it on the screen during the meeting.
I mean, to you guys though. So once I work on it, do I
Yeah.
recirculate it again?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a problem to send a deck out ahead of a meeting. And I will check with, I'll check with Carl tomorrow. I get so anyway, I think this, and I went to a meeting this week about the open meeting law, but I wonder if we actually have to post for the selectmen's meeting, but I don't know. Because we're just presenting the data in an open meeting, but I don't know if we have to post. But anyway, I'll talk to Carl.
Okay.
And so, yeah, then you could email the document to everyone else so they have it. But like I said, to present it on the screen during the meeting is totally okay.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent.
The Board of Selectmen have gone kicking and screaming into this technological age because of Corona. So they've learned how to use Zoom and all that other stuff. It's kind of amazing.
Microsoft Teams, which I think is
Well,
junk.
let's not get crazy. I use Teams all day at work now, but all day, every day, I live in Teams. And
So tell me, is there a way to set it up like Zoom so that it doesn't bounce back and forth full screen every time someone talks? Like I like
Yeah.
have the boxes of where I can see everybody.
we have if you're talking to I think it does center off one person, but if you have like 10 people on a call, no, it depends. I've seen it where we have calls with people and we're like 9 people, and it just makes like a Brady Bunch thing on your screen.
Yeah, that's what I prefer. But every time I've used it, and my firm uses Zoom, but a couple times for clients and stuff, I've had to use it, and it always would like whoever's talking, it will be full screen, and then there's like a between. Yeah. So anyway, I digress.
Do you have 2 monitors?
I do.
Because that helps a lot too,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
even with Zoom. Because Zoom, I have one Zoom screen on one monitor and another one on the other, so I can switch back and forth between gallery view and speaker view, and then my other monitor just shows, the last speaker, as long as it's not me.
Yep, I
Yeah,
have the
you can,
doc and
yeah,
everything.
I mean,
Talking about Teams, not Zoom.
No, that's
you're
Zoom.
talking about,
But in Teams, now I'm in it all day and I even pay attention. Usually it just breaks it up into quadrants for 4 people, and it doesn't really put them in the center of the screen. So make sure yours is up to date, your Teams.
well,
Yeah.
actually, using Zoom, you've got a choice what shows on your screen.
Right.
Like right now, I've got four quadrants because there's 4 of us. Well, actually, there's only 3. At any rate, the person who's the host of the meeting can choose what that screen looks like.
True. And also you can set it per yourself. In your upper right-hand corner of your Zoom, it probably says speaker view. If you click on that, it'll change to gallery view, and then it'll put everybody at the top and the person speaking at the top in this big in the middle. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, Zoom is way better for video conferencing than Teams, no doubt. But some of the other collaboration tools that we've been using for Teams are way better than either. Frankly, Slack is pretty good also, but the Teams is very well integrated with SharePoint and all the other Microsoft stuff. So if you're a Microsoft shop, it's the beans. But
Yeah, we are. It's interesting. We are, except for when it comes to that.
because the town is going to be doing, the town itself is, and so that's for my day job, right? So, but the town is also embarking on adopting Office 365, and that's going to come with Teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that.
Just went through it.
They use it.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to, we just upped the license. I've been paying it, the Zoom license, I've been paying it every month because at first we didn't know how long this was going to drag on. And, it's not an insignificant amount of money to the town to have the Zoom. It's $20, gut shot, $20 per host per month. And we have 20 hosts now, and we're heading for 25. So you get a discount if you license it for the year, but at 20 times 20, it's $400 a month times 12. It's $5,000 a year just to provide, just for the Zoom.
Yep.
So it ends up being a little less expensive because you get a discount if you sign up for the whole year. But we've done month to month for the first 3 months, and now we're committing for the year. Because we're pretty sure that no matter what happens, even if they have a vaccine in the next couple of months, it's still going to take a while to get that done and distributed and to make sure it's effectual and everything else. We don't foresee running in-person meetings for the public, in the very near term. So the Board of Selectmen may end up having a meeting in the auditorium, and the town attorney may be able to come, or some people may be able to come. But if there's an issue, that someone wants to come to the Board of Selectmen meeting, we still want to make it available via Zoom for remote participation as well. Plus, I think it's encouraged some participation in government. We've seen some, more people show up for conservation meetings, planning board meetings.
It's easier, right?
Selectmen's meeting. Yeah, I mean, I've been to more meetings than I care to count, but only because I've been the Zoom guy. But yeah, it's easy. You just dial in. You don't have to drive to town hall, and if it's 10 degrees out and snowing, you don't have to worry about that. Or 90 degrees out and raining, you just go upstairs and log on, right? And you can go to a meeting.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
all
guys,
right. So that seemed like a plan.
Oh, that sounds like a plan.
Okay, so then we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I second.
Okay. And so it's a roll call vote. Doug Moglen, aye.
Alicia Sullivan, aye.
Marlene Quinlan, aye.
Jim Johnson, aye.
And we are.